Well, as we've been talking about yesterday at this time, the Patriots, have reportedly signed free agent running back Ezekiel Elliott to a one-year deal that will be worth up to $6 million with incentives. He had a prolific 7-year run with the Dallas Cowboys, where he ranks on the team's all-time rushing list behind Hall of Famers Tony Dorsett and Emmitt Smith. Dan Orlovsky posting this, though, on social media, X, I think it was formerly known as Twitter. Quote, the Patriots are going to try and play a style of football they did in the early 2000s, and one that only one team in the AFC will, Tennessee. Great defense, dominate on the ground, efficient pass game that's matchup driven. As always, zig when they zag. All right, let's deep dive this Patriots offense and what the new look means. Tommy Curran is in Green Bay. He's joining me, Phil Perry and Ted Johnson here who are in studio. Curran, can the Patriots win with that sort of early 2000s type of offense? I think I heard Greg Bedard today and Felger and Maz say they're living in 1994, where you've got this hopefully stout defense. Maybe you run the ball. You have an efficient, not dynamic quarterback. Is that their best path to winning, or is it an archaic way of looking at how to win in the NFL?
I think we're presuming that Dan Orlovsky's right, which is the baseline jumping off point for this. Do we really believe the Patriots want to be similar to the Tennessee Titans and be a run-first team? I don't know if I believe that to be the case. Is that based upon the addition of Ezekiel Elliott? Because I look at Ezekiel Elliott as a bit player, as a guy who might get the ball 10 times a game on the ground, 160 times. I don't think the Patriots are explosive, but I don't think that Ezekiel Elliott should be the straw that broke the camel's back to say that they're going to be a ground and pound football team. I think they want to be any number of things. That's the problem, and we've discussed it, Tren and Ted and Phil and Amina and whoever else is back there. They don't know what their identity is. They want to be all things to everybody. My contention is, Trenni, that if you can't find a way to get to 24 points on a regular basis, you're going to be in trouble. And the approach the Patriots have, where they're just kind of, we'll figure it out when we figure it out, is kind of setting yourself up to fail a little bit at the beginning of the year, no matter how good you might be later.
Ted, how does this team get to 24 points? Like, let's put what Orlovsky said to the side. Something I brought up in our email today is the only way you can win is not necessarily the run-heavy offense, but a balanced offense. A lot of play action to maybe keep defenses off kilter, but without that dynamic quarterback, without a receiver that can go be a game changer and make those big plays for you, true number one receiver. Can you win in the NFL? Can you put up 24, 27, 30 points a game with this roster?
But you know what? You added that last part. I was going to say maybe, but then you say the roster. Then the roster, let's face it, the roster, this isn't the best roster, but you can out-scheme. You can come up with creative ways. I mean, that's why Bill O'Brien was brought in here, was to come up with great schemes, come up with game plans every single week to best highlight, what he wants to do. So you need a more aggressive mindset. Let's just face that. You need a more, besides that, you need playmakers, more explosive playmakers. So there's a lot of things lacking in this offense that I would say that you can get to 24 points every game. It's an offense that is going to be more ball control than it is running. They just want to keep the ball away from the other team's offense, and then when the defense out there do their thing. And so that's the method and the way in which they want to play football. And I don't think it's probably the most successful way to do it. I really don't.
Two things. You can be a playoff team, a contending team that is offensively built around the run game. I really believe that. I look at San Francisco the last few years. I look at Sean McVay and what the Rams have done the last few years. It starts for those teams with the run game, and the pass game is married with the run game, and therefore you become explosive.
That's the difference.
You have to be explosive. You can't be ground and pound 3 yards in a cloud of dust all the way up the field and get up the field in 15 plays, series after series after series. That doesn't work. You have to be explosive because you have a well-established, imposing run game. That's what the Patriots will try to do. Do they have the playmakers? Like the Rams, Trenni. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods a few years ago, Odell Beckham. They had explosive guys in the pass game that went with the run game. The Niners, Deebo Samuel, we know the explosive playmakers they have. The Patriots don't have the same personnel.
Yeah, Curran, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like just yesterday or late last week you were talking about how we haven't seen those types of plays, those explosive plays being practiced in camp. Do they have guys that can be explosive and make that big play?
No, they don't. I mean, it has to be schemed up. When we watched a couple years ago when Brandon Bolden had multiple long-distance touchdowns from the running back position as their main third down back, it was because Josh McDaniels was scheming up plays and setting things up to have him naked and alone with no one in sight. It wasn't because of Brandon Bolden's exceptional explosiveness. And I guess what it gets to, Trenni, is we determine by using our logic, if you don't want DeAndre Hopkins and you don't want Dalvin Cook, who you explained was a home run hitter any number of times, and Matt Groh acknowledged the same thing, well, then you're choosing Ezekiel Elliott. And you're choosing to run with Kendrick Bourne and Devontae Parker. So I guess we logically follow that, well, this is the Patriots choosing to be non-explosive. I just don't know if you can penetrate into Bill's cranium and look around in there if he looks at his team as non-explosive. Because the decisions made seem to be him saying, I don't want those players. So then we logically deduce, as Orlovsky did, and as we kind of are in this segment, saying that, well, they want to be ground and pound. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I just don't think that Bill knows what he wants to do on offense or how to get there. Well, he wants his defense to be the star. Go ahead, you take.
Well, I was just going to say that last point, Curran, is a perfect one because he doesn't know how to get there. And we're seeing that year after year when he has an offense-heavy draft class. Let's take a look now at the Ford Big Board, which is built for America, built Ford proud. Here is the Patriots 2022 draft class. Overall, exactly maybe panned out the way we're all hoping. Cole Strange practiced for the first time on Sunday after a 2-week absence due to injury. Tyquan Thornton is fighting for his spot on the depth chart. Marcus Jones, he's been quiet in camp. Jack Jones dealing with those legal troubles off the field and had his own drama on it. Running backs Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris, they've yet to leave their mark in the backfield, hence the reason they're probably going after Ezekiel Elliott. And Bailey Zappi, who we all thought maybe if Mac Jones doesn't work out might be a guy having a roller coaster ride in camp. I mean, Phil, I don't want to call this draft class a dud because it's only been 1 year. But it is sort of a stark contrast to me when you look at the draft class from last year and sort of the early returns versus the draft class from this year, which was decidedly heavier on defense and those early returns. And it's easy to I think to look at it and think 2023 is probably going to pan out to be a better draft class than 2022, which was heavily focused on offense, which is not Bill's forte.
Well, we'll see, right? I think the fair thing to do with all of these draft classes, and nobody wants to do it, myself included. I host a podcast where we focused on the draft 30 seconds after it's over, right? And for the next however many years. But we have to wait because I think Cole Strange can play. I think he'll be fine at guard. Would I have made that pick? No, probably not. You probably could have got him a little later, but I think he can play. I think this last year's draft, will really hinge on what you get from Tyquan Thornton. And it gets back to that last point Tom made. I think Bill Belichick looks at his offense and says, hey guys, we can be explosive. Devontae Parker, in terms of his yards per catch, is up there among the league leaders. I would say, okay, great, he can't stay on the field, and how consistently does he actually do it? We drafted a guy, Ted, who runs a 4.2. How much more explosive do you want us to be? We're trying to do that whole thing that you're talking about. It just hasn't worked out the way that they've wanted it to. So, to me, that's the guy, Tyquan Thornton, because I think Marcus Jones can play. If Jack Jones can stay on the field, I think he can play as well. Those top 4 guys, plus Bailey Zappi, if they pan out, I think it ends up looking like a good draft, but if Tyquan Thornton gives you nothing, then it changes the picture.
Yeah, no, I hear what you say, Phil, but I think the worrisome thing about that draft class is that there was you reached for Tyquan Thornton, you reached for Cole Strange. A lot of people would say, taking a flyer on Jack Jones, maybe that was a risky kind of thing. So there was a lot of kind of things that were, attached to these rookies where it's just not seeing them maybe where you want them at this point isn't that surprising because a lot of people thought they needed some seasoning even when the Patriots drafted them. So sometimes you just wish the Patriots would get, draft guys that they didn't take 2 or 3 years to develop. They could come in like they used to in my day, come in and get drafted and you play right away. But it's a little bit frustrating to see how slow some of the development is with some of these players.
Yeah, and to bring it full circle, Curran, part of the reason that we are talking about Zeke Elliott is because Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong, again, looked like they may have some potential last year and then in camp this year have faded off into the sunset. And as I heard you say on Quick Slants, so now here we are in August and you're like grabbing things off the shelf to try and, make something of it.
Yeah, and again, this is not a snapshot. It's a pattern. Look at the tight end situation. I wrote about it innumerable times. Rob Gronkowski was either hurt or disgruntled or out the door for going on about 5 years before it finally ended. Yet the Patriots went for a full decade drafting only 3 tight ends. One was Ryan Izzo, Phil helped me out on the other two. But
Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene, how could you forget? Legends.
No. It was the other guys. And then they said, whoa, we don't have any tight ends. Let's go get Dalton Keene and Devin Asiasi. Neither worked out. So then you had to pay an insane amount of money for Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. So for the 4 guys that you decided to go spend on, one worked out. And you ignored it for a year. And we looked at that position again this offseason and said, boy, there's tight ends there. Those guys are both up this year. Gesicki and Hunter Henry, shouldn't you do something? Boy, they really need a tackle. Well, they got Riley Reif and Calvin Anderson. Those guys aren't really tackles. They're not top-tier guys. So it's Bill Parcells once said, and there's a NFL Films clip, he yells at Bill Belichick over the headset, Belichick, just put the defense on the field and stop trying to impress everybody with how smart you are.
Wow.
Enough said.
Perfect.
Yeah. And with that, we're going to tell you to check out more stories like that on the latest Patriots Talk podcast. Tommy Curran, Phil Perry, and Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald have much more on what to expect from the joint practices in Green Bay. You can scan the QR code on the screen. You can also find it on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube. It's presented by FanDuel Sportsbook.